All right. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and thanks for being here with that many people still here in the auditorium. It's of course the most easy decision to stay in the auditorium, but I'll make sure you will not regret it. We have 4 speakers today who will tell you about their overview about their national systems. How is research integrity in their countries? We will hear about France, Estonia, UK, and Lithuania.
Thank you. So I will present some results of the Responsible Research Barometer that was conducted in Lithuania. Not all the results due to fit in the time. So all the results are published and also in English available in, I will show also the links later on. First, I will start with short introduction of methodological approach. Okay, it does not. So the survey was adapted for the Lithuanian context from the Finnish National Board of Research Integrity TENK, and the ethical position questionnaire was used, developed by Forsyth. The aims of the surveys to provide insights into current practices of research and publication ethics in Lithuania. And there are 5 main parts covered. So we ask about the knowledge on research and publication ethics, ethical attitudes of the researchers, also on the observation of unethical behavior and experiences of unethical behavior, and there is a section on professional characteristics of respondents. And the target groups are doctoral students and researchers, including teaching staff, scientists, and other researchers in institutions. And the survey is conducted every 2nd year. So last year we had a second survey. And the response rate, during the last survey, we had a decrease in response rate, so the results should be considered. This should be taken into account when considering the results of the second survey. And now, shortly about the profile of the respondents. So that is based on the largest share of respondents who had this characteristic. So the main workload is teaching, approximately 1/3 or more. Similar shares of respondents are indicated the main workload scientific activities. There are also some respondents who are obviously pursuing doctoral studies or administrative work also. And most of them have doctoral equivalent degrees, so about 2/3. Most of them work in public universities, which is the main. I'm sorry. Yes, thank you. Sorry. The main institutions for research in terms of personnel and student numbers, and also they have almost half of them have up to 10 years experience in scientific work. So they are relatively quite young researchers represented, and also as well the other share is having larger experience. And now to the results. So we asked them about the knowledge of research publication ethics regulations in this field. There are national regulations or documents. Most of them are offices, recommendations, guidelines. Then there are also Lithuanian University Directors Conference guidelines on publication ethics, and there are also international, main international guidelines and recommendations. So one of the results is that almost approximately half of the respondents, they indicate that they do not know any of these documents well. So that's one point. Then we also observe that national offices mostly documents are in general better known than international ones. And we have a similar pattern when we ask about what the respondents know about the implementation of those regulations at their institutions. And we also measure the competence of academic staff. So we calculate coefficients that is based on the answers, how often the researchers improve their knowledge in the field of research or publication ethics over the last 3 years. And we see that it is not very high, so it's approximately 1.5, 1.6. And one third indicated they never actually improved their knowledge in these fields. But if of those who did not improve their knowledge, actually the largest share, so 45%, they indicate that they would like to do this in the future. And we also, I'm sorry. So this was the last slide. So the ways of improving knowledge. So we see that there are some trends that change over in this the last survey. So the main way is events, learning events at the home institutions. But then we also see the increase in virtual events, so which is of course can be explained due to pandemics and all the study and other events moving online. But we also see some indications of less self-study and more participation in or events organized by other Lithuanian institutions. And from open-ended questions, we also see that office is recognized as important source of this of these training events and the sharing the knowledge. And we also see that there are some indications for institutional efforts here to provide more information or conditions for the trainings. And those who participate in the in learning events, so they provide the reasons, and interestingly, so the main reason is that each research has to understand this area well, but there are again some changes in the last survey. So it seems that the inspiration from the peers is getting less important. So either from home institution academic community or from foreign colleagues, and less self-observed lack of personal knowledge is less important. And now I will turn to the other section of the results. So on the experiences of dishonest behavior, I would like to mention that we also ask about the unethical behavior that is observed in the academia. There are also some results on that. So I will not present them here, but you can also see it in the report. So what kind of particular unethical behavior, misconduct is observed in research conduct, publishing, and authorship related ethical breaches. And yes, but here we ask about personal experience, so encountering personally with from the other researchers with dishonest behavior, and we see that 1/4 to 1/3 of the researchers report that they encounter personally this dishonest behavior. And what also important finding is that quite a lot, actually approximately half of those who encounter this behavior, they do not refer it anywhere because they thought that it was meaningless, or they didn't refer anywhere because they have solved the situation by themselves. And only quite small share reported that they referred to manager of the unit, so department or institute or committee or of the institution or unit or the national office. And there are also some answers provided to explain what happened if they report those incidences. So that explains why perhaps it is not that encouraging to report to someone, because there are cases reported about negative consequences to the respondents, or nothing has changed in the situation. Also, there are efforts of institutions or colleagues to neutralize the situation, saying that it's everyday practice. And there are some indications, some report from the respondents that they took leadership and they defended their ground, so they did some actions by themselves to prevent the misconduct or to prevent this behavior, unfair behavior with them. And now coming to summarize summary of this presentation. So the key points that what we see from the survey, some part of the survey results, that in general we can say that the improvement of research and publishing ethics knowledge is quite rarely done by the researchers, and also that but almost half of the respondents, they who do not improve their research, they would like to do so in the future. And there are also some differences in the ways and reasons how and why this the researchers improve their knowledge, and which suggests that more institutional efforts could be could be taken in organizing and communicating training in the field of research and publish ethics to the community. And the other message is that quite significant part of the respondents report that they personally encounter dishonest behavior. But large part of them do not refer anywhere, or those or report quite negative or not positive, at least, experience if they report if they refer that situation to some committee or official, which leads to suggestion that there is a room to improve how institutions handle whistleblowers, and this is an area for the improvement for institutions. So, and these are the references and also the links to the report. To the reports, and I thank you for your information, for your attention, and if you have any questions, so you're welcome.
Thank you, Julija. It's a great overview of the situation in Lithuania with a trend from the last 2 years. Any questions? Definitely, there will be some, I guess. No? No, none of the people online as well, but I have a question. There's some things in the presentation to not be too optimistic about. People know less of the documents, but there's also some things to be optimistic about. What are you? Optimistic or pessimistic about the future?
Well, I think that it indicates that we perhaps must have something to do about the ways we present this issue to the academic community, because of course these are only 2 points in the time, so it's not it cannot be that cannot say that there is a trend, but it could be that we have some limit of what we can do with these tools that we have so far and as an office. So I think that perhaps we need some other tools and also some maybe more involvement also in the institutional level.
Did the institutions see a kind of a call to action because of this barometer?
I do not have the reaction of institutions. I do not know what they think actually, but we have also as office, we have so the ombudsperson organizes some meetings with also committees of the institution. So we have this kind of connection with them. So I think this is also important because they kind of also represent this, not only they handle the complaints, but also represent this issue in the academic community.
Yeah, this sharing of expertise nationally and internationally, as we are doing here, is very important. Any other questions? If not, then let's thank the speaker again. And then I'll ask Gillian Rendle to the floor. She's from the new UK Committee on Research and Integrity. And I'm very curious because she analyzed for the first time this golden pile of information stemming from these annual reports by British universities. They had to fill in anyhow because of the old Concordat, but she will tell us everything in a minute. The floor is yours.
Maybe not everything in 15 minutes, but I'll definitely give an overview. So yes, hello, I'm Gillian Rendle and I'm the Secretariat Lead for the UK Committee on Research Integrity. And before I talk about the analysis, which is one of the committee's first projects, I wanted to just introduce the committee because we are a really new part of the UK landscape. So the committee was formed just in May last year and is a national body formed in response to a parliamentary inquiry which suggested that there there was still a need for greater attention on research integrity in the UK. So there are freestanding committees, 10 members and 2 co-chairs, and they have a responsibility to promote and drive research integrity in the UK across all sectors. So higher education institutes, independent research organisations, research funders, public, private and third sector organisations. Our members are drawn from a wide range of disciplines and career stages and different backgrounds, which we felt was really important. So we've got academia, industry, research governance, publishing, all represented in those few members. And they're a really passionate, collaborative, generous group of individuals. So it's fun working with them as they establish themselves. The committee is hosted by UK Research and Innovation, who provide the secretariat and budget. And they're complementary to the UK Research Integrity Office, which many of you will know their excellent work to support good research practice in the UK. So one of the tasks that the committee was asked to do by the Parliamentary Committee was to produce an annual State of the Nation report. That first statement was published 2 months ago. Do go and have a look at it. And it gives a snapshot of research integrity in the UK, highlighting work already being done and areas where the committee feels there's a need for more work. When we were collecting evidence for that statement, as you all know well, evidence of research integrity at a national level is not straightforward to find. And one of the untapped resources in the UK were these annual statements that universities and other research performing organisations have to publish in order to meet their commitments to the UK Concordat to support research integrity. So just to introduce those statements a little bit more, the UK Concordat is signed by all the major funders. So if you're receiving money from one of the major funders in the UK, you have to meet the commitments of the Concordat, and that includes publishing an annual statement. The Concordat outlines the sort of material that you should put into this statement, but they don't say the exact content or give a sort of format. So there's a huge variability in these reports. Some of them are maybe just a single page saying that they meet the commitments. Others are 20-page descriptions of all of the integrity activities at that institution. So the committee wanted to do the first comprehensive analysis of these statements and ask, what does this tell us about the state of research integrity in the UK? What can we learn about the number of research misconduct cases in UK universities? And how useful is looking at the data in this way? Because these statements were not designed to be analysed in this way. So in order to answer those questions, we commissioned a consultant to seek out and analyse 3 years' worth of annual statements. And the project was done in collaboration with the Concordat Signatories Group, and we had an advisory group that included UK RIO. The consultant's first stage was to go and find the annual statements. They should all be published online, but they also contacted universities where they were not. And they undertook that targeted search from a list of 134 universities who'd received UKRI money between 2019 and 2022. And that was just to give us a subset who we knew really should have published these statements. They then analysed the statements using NVivo to tag relevant portions of text against the Concordat requirements to identify potential good case studies, and then they undertook a detailed thematic coding, and all of that work was done by human analysts. We were very conscious that the absence of information in reports does not equal the absence of activity in institutions. So institutions may have put something in their report or may not, but that doesn't tell us that the activity is not happening. So our first finding was the number of statements that they managed to find. So they got 283 statements from 117 universities. So overall, that was 70% of our target. And I think what happened with the the final year is actually we went looking for them too early. So I would hope that 61% would increase in time. So that was our first finding. It's pretty good in terms of compliance with the Concordat, but obviously there's still a bit of a way to go, since in theory all those numbers should be 100%. In terms of the key findings from the content of the statements, we drew out 5 main findings, but I won't stop on this slide because I'll go through them one by one. So firstly, unsurprisingly, the 117 universities from which we gathered statements are hugely diverse. Some of them are research intensive, some of them are not. The small specialist institutions might have fewer than 100 academic staff. The largest probably has over 9,000 academic staff. So as you can imagine, the range and depth of research integrity activities reported were also hugely variable. But the analysis did suggest that all types of institution were actively engaging, and I think that was really good to see. There was nothing to indicate that particular types of institution were doing more or less in this area. So I think we would always expect that those differences to emerge, but it does mean that the information we get is not necessarily comparable, even when it could be. And I think that's one of the sort of issues here, is that the autonomy that universities have to give information in a format that suits their stage of their journey is hugely important. But that has to be balanced against the benefits of having comparable data. And in the UK, research integrity is an area which continues to get parliamentary attention. We recently had another inquiry into reproducibility. So it's very hard to evidence what the real picture is, and some more uniformity in these statements might help, but it also might increase the bureaucratic burden for institutions. The next area we looked at was misconduct, and only 5 of the statements failed to report on misconduct numbers, even to give a null report. So we can be confident that this does show the number of investigations for those universities for those years that we have a statement. So what we can see is that in any given year, around 60% of the sample universities will have at least one allegation, around 40 to 50% will have at least one investigation, and around 20 to 30% of universities had an allegation upheld in part or in full in any given year. However, as I note on the slide, there are lots of caveats and issues with these numbers. So, for example, we know investigations can take more than a year to complete, and it wasn't necessarily possible to tell from the statements whether that had been counted, therefore, in multiple years. There were also a couple of universities with huge numbers of allegations. One had 20 and one had, I think, 60. But these were to do with historic cases and the inclusion of student cases in the numbers. So we could have removed those from the analysis, but actually we don't know how many other cases like that are hidden in the data. So I do think it's a really good thing, though, that we have this baseline and that we're making this information, which is publicly available because it should be published, but by bringing it together, I think we're making it more transparent, which is a really good thing. And hopefully reassuring for even the smaller organizations we have that they're not alone in terms of dealing with these cases. We also know, this does set a number that we can hopefully monitor in future, and we know that local cultures can act against speaking up, so we might see these numbers go up in future, and that might be a positive thing. But again, as we've talked about in this session already, one of the limits of this is just the actual allegations, so we can't see where issues are resolved informally. Although there was one university we found who did a very transparent table counting all of the issues that were raised with them, all of the concerns raised, and then all of the allegations and investigations, which we've highlighted in the report as good practice. So we might not have definitive numbers, but what we could see from the statement is that institutions are trying to improve their processes. So for example, Queen's University Belfast now explicitly consider mental well-being when running all their cases. So as the previous speaker talked about, that's often an issue, and that's something which they've now codified. And I'm not really giving you much time to read these, but there are lots of examples in the report. So the third finding, and I think we would have hoped to see this, and it was really positive to see it, is that integrity is part of these broader discussions going on about research culture. There were mentions of bullying and harassment policies, open data, research governance, all of which demonstrates a clear understanding of the complex challenge of supporting and improving research integrity. We will be repeating this this analysis in 2 years' time, which will be really nice to kind of see how things change. And so, for example, one thing that I was interested to see was among the annual statements we looked at, 16 institutions have put in place some kind of research integrity champions or advisors, and from quite different types of institution. I actually thought that number might be higher, and as I say, it might be that others do it and didn't mention it, but that's the sort of thing it'll be really good to see how that changes over time. So the vast majority of statements discuss their training provision, but on the whole, the training mentioned did appear to be targeted at early career researchers or new starters. So it's unclear whether support for later stage researchers is just not called training and not captured in this way, or whether this does identify a sort of gap for support. Annual statements are, in most cases, obviously presenting the institution's view on their activities with no or limited supporting evidence. And that is not unexpected because they're not asked to evaluate their own performance. But it does mean that while we have a much better understanding of the activities that are underway, we don't have any indication of whether those are fit for purpose. However, many of the statements do include a sense of progress from one year to the next. They mention changes and updates that might have been driven by internal factors or by external policies or environment changes. So that does suggest that institutions are not considering them as a tick box, but are actually using these statements as a chance to take stock and think about their journey. So overall, the statements present a positive outlook for the state of research integrity in the UK. They show a broad range of activities tailored to specific institutional contexts with evidence of learning and embedded into the broader research culture discussions. So I think while the findings are reassuring, obviously they only go some way to helping us think about the question of how do we know if an organization or if the UK has high standards of research integrity. And I'm really interested in all the different ways that countries and organizations are trying to answer this. If we want reportable information that can be easily analyzed at a national level, then the adoption of a common template, which has recently been launched as a pilot, will be really important. But we know that there is that balance to strike with institutional autonomy. I think we can articulate the benefits from the UK Committee on Research Integrity's point of view of having these statements. It's been a great resource for us to give us some qualitative evidence about activities, examples of good practice. We can assume that there's a benefit to universities in compiling these statements. It gives them that opportunity to reflect, potentially to raise issues with their governing body, although the public nature of those statements probably inhibits that element of it. But this piece of work didn't ask universities what they think about these statements, and that's really the next step for the committee. We want to have that conversation with the sector, together with Concordat signatories, about how they feel about these statements, about how we can maximize the value of them in future, and what that might look like. So do please go and read the full report. and just wanted to say thank you to everyone who was involved in the project. Full list of organizations.
Right. Thank you. Thank you, Gillian. And the first question will be from? Cannot clearly see.
Oh,
There,
at the
Maura Heine in the back.
Thank you very much, Gillian. That was really interesting. And it's going to be so interesting to see what happens in the coming years when you do comparative, etc. But I was just wondering, you said that 76%, I think, of the institutions in receipt of UKRI funding, where it's mandatory to do these statements, had done statements. Do UKRI follow up in any way? Are there any sanctions for not doing them? You know, what's the incentive, let's say?
Yeah, so I think from the point of view of the funders, there's a bit of a sort of, I suppose, disconnect with the assurance processes. So for a funder like UKRI or Wellcome, they might do assurance, you know, kind of visits with every 2 to 3 years, you know, with the big institutes. And at that point, I know that they do check, you know, has this been done? For the smaller institutes that might receive a couple of grants, you know, every year, or then I think they're probably not having the same level of scrutiny, so it won't be picked up so often. So I suspect that's part of the issue, is just that how those processes interact. I think, though, the attention on this area definitely drives up people meeting that commitment. And there was, I can't remember the numbers, but this was looked at prior to the revision of the Concordat in 2019, and the numbers were a lot worse. So this is an improvement.
And do you think that there is any possibility for UKRI to provide some sort of a template so that people could at least be giving you similar data?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so I will say that the Concordat signatories have issued a template now, and basically it just came out too late for anyone to have used it. So none of the statements that we looked at had yet started using it. But I think what's really useful about the work of the committee is that this analysis sort of already shows that we could probably tweak the template a bit. So I think that this work will inform some iterations to the template after the pilot.
Great. Seems like a good way to go. You have a horizon of even better work to better understand the research integrity landscape in the UK. If there are no more further questions, and also not online, let us thank Gillian again.
Great.
And then I will give the floor to the last speaker of this session. That is Mari-Liisa Parder from Estonia, right? The floor is yours.
Thank you very much. I'm from Center for Ethics, University of Tartu. We're waiting my slides to come up here. Yes, very good. So what I'm going to be talking about today is really exciting, at least for us. So we developed a research integrity methodology for capturing the status quo in Estonia. We carried out a national survey targeted at all the scientists in Estonia. A little bit about the background. So there are different surveys analyzing the research integrity in different contexts, but for our study we used 4 examples as good examples that are really close to what we were interested in. They are the Finland, the Netherlands study, the Norwegian study, and Lithuanian study, also presented here today. Unfortunately, I'm not going to show you similar results because I'm going to be talking a little bit about different things in this presentation. A little bit more background about Estonia. So, this explains why we are so excited about it, is that in the beginning of 1990s, after we gained our independence, Research Ethics Committee of University of Tartu was established. And then the next step was in 2001 when Center for Ethics, University of Tartu, where I'm working at, was established, and 2002 ethics code for Estonian scientists was created. And then again was a little pause in this timeline, and in 2017, at the same time with the ALEA code being created, the Estonia Code of Conduct for Research Integrity was also in development and was signed in November by all the universities and research institutions in Estonia. So this is a little bit of background of where we are coming from. So the aim of the study for us was twofolding. The first was to develop the suitable methodology for Estonia, so that we, as the Estonian Research Council was ordering the study to be carried out, to give them the most important information of what's going on in Estonia, and it was this firstly to find out what kind of methodology captures the best for us. And the second aim was to map the current situation, but I emphasize it was a pilot study. So we used an online standardized questionnaire, drawing for the 4 questionnaires I already showed you. It was targeted to researchers whose self-assessed research workload formed at least 20% of their full-time position. So this was this first inclusion question. So if you answered no, then you were directed to the end of the questionnaire. And what's, I think, very interesting and very important to us was the fact to keep the questionnaire really anonymous, because Estonia is a really small country, 1.3 million inhabitants, very little scientists. I'll come back to the number of scientists later. So, for example, we asked what type of institution you are coming from, because we targeted, in addition to research institutions, also higher educational institutions, because we know that they are also carrying out research, but on a really small scale. They might only have one researcher or one lecturer doing research in addition to their everyday work. Then we had research level. We used the European standardized levels, the 1 to 4. Then highest educational degree that you have gotten. How long is the experience in years? And what is your research field in 4 possible areas? We did not ask gender. So this is something that we dropped, because, as I said, there are many scientists who are working in small institutions. There might be only one female professor working, so it would be really easy to identify from the data set. And our aim also was to make the data set later available for everyone interested. So this work is still going on, but in the future it will be available. And the study was approved by the Research Ethics Committee of the University of Tartu. So we included 13 misconduct ways and questionable research practices, and they are presented in the same way as they were presented in the questionnaire. These 13 were chosen based on the feedback of our experts. So we contacted all our experts in Estonia, research integrity advisors of University of Tartu, but also our good friends from abroad who gave us feedback. So many of these you can recognize already from the questionnaires and results being published by other countries. But for example, what we added are two things. We added one thing, is the bluffing part. And the bluffing part means that you exaggerate your expertise and your competencies. So this was something that came from our experts. And in total, 354 respondents answered to the questionnaire. The questionnaire was up for 3 weeks. Unfortunately, I cannot say what was the response rate because we don't know how many researchers we have in Estonia. We are still working on it to get the final number, but why is it like that is that in Estonia, researchers and engineers are counted together. Therefore, we don't have the way to take the engineers out to get a final number. So this is something that we are still working on. Now a little bit about the results. We asked about the 13 possible QRPs and FFPs. 3 questions. The first one was, how problematic are these activities in your opinion? And as I said, as it was a pilot study, the respondents also got the possibility to give feedback to our questionnaire. So now we know that they understood it in 2 ways. First, they understood it how problematic it would be if it emerged in my field. And the other possibility to understand this question was how problematic I think it is at the moment. So this is something that we gave out as a suggestion, that this needs to be either changed or to put into 2 questions. And as you can see, salami slicing, serious deviation of the protocols, and third-party pressure in research, and also non-intended use of research are the 4 top ones considered not very problematic. I'll come back to that later. And in the end, you can see as FFP are quite heavily understood as very problematic. So overall results also show that we are in the same page with other similar studies in regards of FFP. Now the second question we asked is, do you know if your colleagues have engaged in the activity? And the third question I can already tell you is that I myself have engaged in this activity in the last 5 years. And here you can see non-intended use of research funds, gift authorship, salami slicing, and hampering the word of another research being quite high. I have seen my colleagues doing something like that. And I would like to take a little time and to explain it a little bit. I think this result reflects the Estonian situation quite honestly, as we can see both the international tensions and national tensions emerging on this slide. The national tension is that we have very scarce resources in our system. Many researchers, as they also could explain it verbally, why are they doing it, or why are they seeing their fellow colleagues are doing something like that, is that our researchers are not the non-intended use of research funds doesn't mean that I'm taking the money to myself, but it means I'm using it for other purposes that it was intended for. And the other purposes it was intended for is to cover, for example, education, higher education, like teaching salaries, but also they explained in their open questions that if I have a really good worker, really good researchers, and my grant just run out, then I have to somehow keep them until we get another grant and we can continue our work normally. So this is something we need to take into consideration in Estonia. Salami slicing and gift authorship have been a very serious topic on this conference already. I don't think I need to add much more. The competition in the field is very hard. And what was surprising to us is the hampering of the work of another researcher. This can also be translated as bullying at the workplace. Harassment, bullying, not giving resources, not giving information, not letting your students cooperate with each other, and so on. And I want to emphasize the 32% here. And then, yes, and then I will continue with the next slide. Have you engaged in the activity? And I ask you to find where this activity is on this slide. So this is the highest difference between I have seen others doing it and I myself have been doing it. It's basically 1% say that they have done something similar. this really puzzled us, so we will keep working on it to find out why this difference is so big. As you can see, other activities are quite similar. The top third one are the same as they have observed for their colleagues. So what to take from this? We think that the methodological approach was quite well justified. There are additions that need to be done in the next wave when it will be carried out. The next suggestion we give is that regular assessment is needed in the future. This cannot be one-time activity, at least I hope it will not be. There are no major differences in FFPs compared to other similar studies. It was around 8%, as we have already seen in the literature. And 4 major QAPs were detected that I already explained. And what I would like to really end my talk with is that the scientists were very motivated to answer the questionnaire. I know that many of you have been struggling with getting scientists to answer the questionnaires, and we were also prepared to do that. We sent out pre-invitation to the scientists because we know that scientists have very limited time amount. They need to plan their activities really well. And so we took the advice and sent out a pre-invitation that please take your time. The questionnaire will be up only for 3 weeks. Please fill it out and so on. And when we sent it out on the first day, we were overwhelmed with the responses we got because scientists thought that we had forgotten to add the link. And we got more than 50 emails asking where is the link and I would like to fill it out. And the questionnaires were filled out in the first week, basically with dripping later on with reminders. So I would like to thank our Estonian Research Council for letting us to do this study. And here is the literature, and I'm very happy to answer to your questions. As I said, it was a pilot study. These are pilot results. We have a vast amount of material coming, but we are still analyzing it because the final report, the descriptive report, only was finalized in July. Thank you.
Thank you, Mari-Liisa. Great overview. Is there any question? And I will pose one myself. Have you compared with possible results from the Netherlands, the Dutch, the Finnish?
Only the FFP part. The other parts we have not had time to cover that well yet. Yeah. We're still working on it. And I can add that we had, about the motivation of the scientists, we had 14 possibilities to write, to answer to open questions. And as qualitative researchers, I'm also again overwhelmed because we got more than 1,000 responses in there, with some of them saying that I would have liked to write more, but there was no room anymore.
Any questions from the floor? Oh, yes, they're in the back at the. Yeah. Please introduce yourself.
Tomáš Foltínek, Masaryk University, Czechia. Thank you for a nice presentation. I was wondering, did the respondents understand what do you mean by that misconduct categories, or did you have to give them definitions?
We had this, the short ones I had here is a short conclusion. We actually had a long detailed explanation of what we are thinking with it. So when we are publishing our article, then all the long ones are there. They just didn't fit on the slide.
And yeah, one additional question: Did you have any problems with like borderline things, like, you know, that the borderline of plagiarism is not really clear, and it applies also to other cases? So like, did they express this in the open questions, or were like, how sure are you with the quantitative numbers? Thank you.
Yes, thank you for that question. The analysis of the qualitative data is still going on, so I cannot confirm that this is actually this, because I don't know yet that well. But at least we describe the activities as really being kind of very explicit things. So we didn't focus on the gray area. So plagiarism was using other people's ideas without acknowledging them, for example. So yeah.
Hey, thank you for your presentation. Do you have any data on how much people start the survey but do not finish it? Because it could be quite sensitive question and
Yes.
enter it.
Yes, we have it, but I cannot say it at the moment. We did. It wasn't much, but there were people who didn't finish the questionnaire, so we excluded them from the analysis. So these are the 354 are the ones who filled in at least half of the questionnaire.
Yeah, thank you very much for your presentation. So this is more of a methodological question, partly based on our own experiences. So you were very keen on protecting the anonymity of the respondents, therefore you did not ask about their gender because you were afraid of re-identification, basically. But you also had open questions where people could, I guess, accidentally give away information that would break the anonymity. So I guess you have two choices. Either you don't make that data public, the open the qualitative data, you don't make it public. But if you don't do that, which I think there's a very good reason to do, we've talked about this conference as well, there are some data that you should not do, then you might as well have included the gender question as well, because you could also take that one out of the published data set. Or do you think that would be wrong in a way?
And we decide, okay, there are two parts of this question. I answer the gender part first. We also got many feedback from the scientists asking if this is really anonymous. So we deliberated on the gender question already before carrying out the questionnaire, and when it was live, we got many questions whether it's really anonymous or not. So what are your measures of having it anonymous? And when we explained it, then either people were satisfied with the answers and filled in the questionnaire, or they decided they didn't. To our knowledge, they were satisfied with the answers that we were giving. So yes, asking the gender was this kind of, even they could have felt that even if we say that we take it out later on, they could have felt that maybe this will identify me, because as though we only have, for example, one female professor in this type institution, so we didn't even want to raise this question in the questionnaire. Now the second part is about open questions. When there was a possibility to write something, we also asked about misconduct. Have you encountered it? What did you do? You had a possibility to write about it, several things. So we had a disclaimer that please don't add identifiable information here, because we don't want to know. We don't want to identify you. And the second part that we did, that our analyst who worked with the data, she went through all the material by hand and deleted any identifiable data that could give away, because Estonia is so small. You give two pieces of information and you can say what university it was where this thing happened. So yes, we got the anonymized version of the open answers. So we are considering to making them also open, but I'm not sure yet. Hopefully we can do it. I would really like that, but we have to still deliberate over it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And if there's no more questions from the audience, not even online, is that also the case? All right, then join me in thanking all the speakers of this session again.